And welcome to a special mini-sode of the Oddity Archive, if a rather bloated mini-sode. I'm definitely going to stop short of calling this one a Ben's junk, though. So, back in late 2015, I did an episode called VCR Ephemera, and one of the many items covered in that episode was the VCR Rabbit line of, shall we say, home micro-broadcasting boxes. And very soon thereafter, I followed up with a very, very quick and dirty episode on the 1986, 1990, and 1992 models of the VCR Rabbit. And given that that episode was made so quickly, I managed to make a few mistakes along the way. Shock of shocks. I managed to skip 2 tests completely, and in my quest at the time to keep everything original and in the box, I didn't even bother to try and get the best possible results within the realm of practicality out of the gear. Now, I'm not going to go over the history or over the finer details of the individual versions of the equipment here. You can just as easily refer back to VCR Ephemera and the original VCR Rabbit episodes for that. This is all about a fresh run of tests, and of course throwing in some new observations and stray comments and stuff. Now, full disclosure, this is actually the last thing I'm shooting for this video, so I already know how all this turns out, but I guess it's your turn to find out. Let's get to it! Okay, I've got a pretty good long intro to this one, so get comfy. So, first and foremost, I do not have any more VCR Rabbit gear now than I did back in 2015 when I first covered this stuff. So that means I still do not have an original 1985 wireless model, which of course got shot down by the FCC very soon after it came out. And I have seen 1 or 2 of them on Fleabay, but they've always been at shall we say, collector's prices. So that's just not going to happen. So we'll kick things off here with the very hastily made and released 1986 hardwired model. But before we get to that, I suppose I should address at least one concern from the first time around, and that would be bad capacitors. And you know what? I wouldn't doubt it on any of the models that I've got, 86, 90, or 92. And there's a bit of a problem, though, as far as really checking that out. I interrupt this segment to spare you some bad reporting. So I have gotten down into all 3 versions of the VCR Rabbit, so I'll just take you on a quick spin around. This is the 86 model in my hand, and for every screwed piece we've got a couple of welded pieces, riveted pieces, but when I dig down as best as I can, I'm not seeing any signs of anything amiss. That doesn't mean that there isn't, but strictly on a superficial level. Now, here's the 1990 model, and this is the transmitter. So on this one, as it turned out, I've got the wrong side of it. But I didn't realize that underneath the rubber feet, I mean, I looked, but there was another membrane underneath it, and then screws. So I pierced the membrane of each one and then dug down in. And it's the same story for the 86, 90, and 92 models. Again, strictly on a superficial level, nothing looks amiss. Everything actually looks pretty dang clean. So I won't quite say that it's devoid of bad caps or anything. This is the 92 model in my hand, receiver. But I'd say the odds are maybe not as high as I once thought. And of course, the 92 model has to do the same enclosed thing all over again. So just a quick look at the transmitter here. And yeah, so I will hand it back over to my past self here now. So the best I can say is, from what I could see of the circuit board with a flashlight, I didn't see any residue or any signs of leakage or an outright blown capacitor, but yeah, that doesn't mean much, does it? So anyway, there's so much to discuss here. One other thing, I am not doing my usual lighting for this. We're going to have to be kind of at the mercy of good old Mother Nature here today. And that is because my regular lighting does cause interference. And I know I'm kind of blabbing about this stuff over something that's hardwired, but I just want to keep it consistent so it's all the same once we get to the wireless stuff. So yeah, no lighting. It's going to be a little more carpet vision heavy today. And another complaint I got, again, this is total overkill for the 86 model, but I was getting a whole bunch of, you might be getting interference from your wireless router. And yep, so I have unplugged that. All my devices are off, like my phone and stuff, and they're off in the bedroom right now, so they are truly not a concern. My TV, my regular modern TV, is a smart TV, and it is unplugged at the moment. And then I also unplugged my cable box and my Roku. So hopefully we've cut down on the variables. Now, another thing I was trying to accomplish back in 2015 was to be completely original. So at the time, certainly with regards to the 86 model, I refused to use anything that was not in box. And I think I was being a little overly hardcore about that. So this time around, the name of the game is at least period plausible. Did it exist yet in 86, and can I pull it off? So even if everything isn't actually from the time period, it would have existed and been in regular use by 1986. So in this case, we've got two CRT TVs handling the heavy lifting here. And our main video source, for this first test at least, is going to be from VHS. So anyway, we're going to be going from the VCR to the VCR Rabbit transmitter, which is peeling off in two directions. One, to the TV for a basic direct feed monitor, normal old coax cable F-type. And here's the change that I've made. So I'm using real, proper, decent speaker wire this time around. So that is the stuff that I use on my stereo equipment. And it's the longest line of it that I've got on me at the moment. I wasn't going to go buy another roll of 50 feet, but we'll call this 10 feet between the two TVs. If it were completely taut, I'd call it 11. So the reason I'm using 16 gauge for that is because the wire that came with the VCR Rabbit back in 86 was super, super thin. And it was pretty lossy too. So yeah, again, I was just so hell-bent on keeping it in the box that I didn't think, you know, maybe I should just use the stuff I normally do. So that's our big revision with the 1986 model, and I'm kind of dancing around the room a bit here. So anyway, let's pick up on that signal flow. We're running 16 gauge speaker wire to the VCR Rabbit receiver. And my camera is probably going to really have trouble with focusing today because of the bad lighting. Anyway, the receiver is passing on to my Toshiba CRT, which I love because it has an output of its own, so you could normally daisy chain TVs together, but in this case, I am running it to my old camcorder, which is passing on the feed to my laptop, which I'm having to give the occasional mouse wiggle to keep it from falling asleep. So anyway, before I forget, I'm just going to go ahead and start it, even if it's going to be another minute or two here. So right out of the gate, if I can get a good shot at that, of course there's a slight frame rate mismatch, but it's a little on the fuzzy side, kind of like a decent rabbit ears, if you will, pickup. But I think it's actually pretty good. Of course, again, the whole reason I'm taking a direct feed is so that I can show it to you and you can really see it proper, not just me swinging the camcorder around. So anyway, I'm sure there's some other stuff that I have forgotten about just in setting this up, but I think I've hit all the main targets here. So let's go ahead and hit play. And I've got my public domain archive VHS here. We'll get up to the theme song if I don't blaze right past it. And, well, I guess that is one thing I've kind of forgotten. So one of the things that came with the Rabbit, hopefully my camcorder will pick this up, right over the play pause button is an IR sensor, which will allow us to point the remote at the other TV and still be able to make the VCR work. Of course, I'm in such closed quarters that might be a little awkward, but I should be able to. I'll try and block things as best as I can. We'll hit play here and yeah, try and hold it right up next to me. So we got that. We do have sound. I've just got it turned way down at the moment. But anyway, we'll call that our first test. I'll let this run for a little bit and then I'll show this to you. All right, we're picking this back up after about a 4-hour delay. So we had a nice little line of thunderstorms roll through the area, and just that, thunderstorms, plenty of lightning. So I decided to just hold off until it all passed through because I knew there would be some interference from that. So anyway, we're picking up now with the 1990 edition of the VCR Rabbit, the first truly legal wireless version. And I want to hit 3 targets with this. So I already somewhat discussed this in the first segment. The number one complaint I got about the original episode was that, did you have the Wi-Fi router on, Benny Boy? That might be the cause of some of your problems. And even though I mentioned nothing of the sort in that episode, I did, and I don't know if there's really any conflicting frequencies there, but I think it's a valid criticism. So, as I mentioned in the first segment, we are completely internet-free. Anything internet-capable is unplugged and or off. My laptop has the Wi-Fi disabled at the moment, so no internet-y stuff. Now, of course, there's nothing I can do about neighbors, but I hope we're insulated enough here that it shouldn't be a problem. So anyway, we got the 1990 version going here, and I've just got the transmitter atop, or as atop as possible, my AV rack. We are still doing VHS for source material. And that brings me to the second target that I wanted to hit with this one. The focus is just not working in the dark here. The second target would be the claim of stereo, because I never really truly tested that the first time around. I mean, I was using a stereo tape, but the parts that I harvested were not distinctly stereo. You couldn't listen with headphones and hear stuff clearly off to the left or right. So this time around, we got the same old tape, and it is a hi-fi stereo tape. So I'm going to go back to the Pavand opening for that, and that has a real nice wide stereo mix to it. So I think we'll figure it out pretty quickly here. And yeah, this is just the short range test. Now, as for the third point that I want to hit, well, I'll discuss it after this test. It's just a silly little thing that I'll add on. But anyway, once again, I've got it set to take a feed here. So actually, let me start that up. And I may have to move around the room a little bit because I may very well be blocking the transmitter. And I will, of course, cut this in so you can hear for yourself if it's stereo or not. So I don't have the sound on the Toshiba at the moment. And we still got a little roll, a little jitter. Not too terrible. And again, that might just be where I'm standing. It seems to be holding, no, it's dropping, but that just might be where I'm sitting. Yeah, now it's starting to roll again. So we got off to a good start there, but it's just not holding. Now I have a theory on that. I think some of the clips used have some level issues. So let's wait for my host segment here. That should be a good strong... And when I say level issues, I mean too much level, too bright. And that seems to be the issue here, color and brightness. So let me do a quick fast forward here. We'll pick back up once the duck and cover, or here we go. Did that do anything? Of course, me and my fast editing in the early days of Archive. Yeah. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn off the camcorder. I'm going to step outside for a couple minutes, and hopefully I won't be causing interference. We'll find out if this is a color issue or what it may be. Might still be any number of things. Could be the whole bad capacitor thing, but we won't know till I step out and come back and take a look. So I'm going to go do that. I tell you, it's been so depressing making this show lately. If you remember, last time we discussed the British Protect and Survive program. For probably the only time in archive history, I wasn't joking about the whole join us next time bit. We really were going to interview the star of Duck and Cover, Bert the Turtle. You might be wondering why I have one of my old VHS camcorders out at the moment, and why I would have it pointed just randomly at one of my IKEA shelves. Well, this is that third point that I was mentioning just a minute ago. The manual to the 1990 version of the VCR Rabbit touts it as being kind of your own little homebrew CCTV connection, closed-circuit TV. So, of course, keeping it period accurate, I had to do VHS. So, we're going to try and hit a few birds with one stone here. So, we're going to do a long-range test. We're going to test the 1990 and 92 versions of this in one shot. And we're going to do one more thing I didn't do with the 90 version, and that is have two items hooked up at once, because it allows you to have one coax item and one composite item hooked up, and you can just switch back and forth between the two with the push of a button. So anyway, everything is still in as same of a spot as possible. It keeps trying to spin around when I face it out. but whatever. Now, you've probably noticed I already said long-range test, so I've moved everything out of here. So we'll have to take a little hike across Archive HQ, and we'll see what's shaking down that way. But I think I'll take a cut here. Well, here we are at the other end of the place, so call it 25 to 30 feet, and I have both my CRTs. We still have the Toshiba running the 1990 version of the Rabbit. We're looking at a live feed of the VHS camcorder, and we still have our little capture setup going on here. So you already saw a quick flash of my little TV. So I'm running another test at the same time of the 1992 version of the VCR Rabbit. And I could take or leave the transmitter, but I like the receiver to this one. I mean, it's still got some grain to the picture, but it doesn't sputter near as much as the 90 version, which just farts along. And I also have a third tripod set up here so I can quickly plonk it down here, and you can watch the TV as I go back to the other end of the place and start pressing buttons so you can see it jump back and forth between the VHS footage and the camcorder, because there's only one of me. So anyway, I'm going to take a cut here. I will get that going. But yeah, how many tests is this at once? 3? Who knows? And then I'll have to reset, and we'll take a little direct feed footage of the 92 version. I tell you, it's been so depressing making this show lately. Hello, all you out there at VHS camcorder land. All-time most infamous slice of American Cold War ephemera. All right, let's close this out on just some stray observations and thoughts. So I'm done with all the direct feed stuff. I've just got the little CRT and the 92 version of the receiver going, more just for something to look at to close things out here. Well, also, and to show off a little something I found. I only found this out making this run on the VCR Rabbit, but I can flick between channels 3 and 4 on the 1990 transmitter, and it doesn't mean a thing. And that kind of got me thinking, it would have been so nice if they could have just carried over the best of each version of the VCR Rabbit and eventually come up with a really great version. You know, carry over the remote control sensor from the first one and eventually culminate in the relative interchangeability and more stability of the 92 version. But yeah. Now, some younger viewers may be going, what's the point of this product in the first place? Well, take yourself back to the 80s and early 90s. VCRs and cable boxes and stuff were a lot more expensive back then, and you also have to factor in inflation. So, if I'm not mistaken, a general VCR Rabbit kit was under $100 at the time, whereas even a cheapy VCR would have been $200 or so. So, keep that in mind. So this is just one of those items that's kind of continued to fascinate me, and I just couldn't revisit it until I had, you know, some CRTs again, and just I guess, the wherewithal to go over it. I've had times where I've kind of been looking for something to fill a week with, and I just never do. But whatever. I'm rambling. So anyway, I await your next round of complaints because I'm sure they're coming. I'm sure there's stuff I've screwed up and other little improvements I could have made. But I think within the realm of available gear and not going too crazy, I think I hopefully hit all the targets here. So I'm going to call it a day here. I'll talk to you again soon. Good times.